topic I wanted to talk to you about today, a topic that has been very much in the news the last couple of weeks, is the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement that Barack Obama is pushing very heavily, along with the Republicans in Congress, to pass through the Congress. The reason I want to talk about it is because, I want to make note of the fact first that every trade agreement so far that has ever been done has been done at the expense of the American middle class. The political justification for it to some degree has been that we are supporting the emergence of democracy and freedom in other countries like China and Mexico and India, and sharing, our great wealth with the world. When in fact what has happened is we have, only created a, great separation between the income of the working people in the world and the very, very small, as in less than 1% of the people on Earth who control 98% of the resources. The Trans-Pacific Trade Deal specifically, is being pushed on us by an ostensibly progressive president who tells us that this trade deal is going to be, good for American workers, it's going to protect American interests in the world, and promote trade which will bring new prosperity in the country and to other countries as well. He's telling us that if, we just trust him, he's going to deliver a deal which we are not allowed to know anything about, and which we, aren't allowed to even participate in the discussion of, but we will be happy with this. I think this is such total crap. And the most important thing that I've seen about the Trans-Pacific Trade Deal, apart from the fact that it's being utterly kept secret from us, is the report that I saw this week, which says that a Trans-Pacific Trade Deal, the way it's established, paves the way for the pharmaceutical companies, through their offshore but wholly owned subsidiaries, to attack Medicare to the tune of $1 billion. And what I see this is, and probably, not just on the issue of Medicare, what I see this trade deal as is yet another nail in the coffin of the American middle class. A flat-out attack on working people. And, it is being pushed at us, secretively by a Congress that obviously is totally in the pocket of the people who, own everything and who are, taking back all of the resources they can get their hands on. So, trade deals, the whole history of trade deals from Bush Sr. through Clinton and Bush Jr. to now, have been a disaster for the American economy. As an example, the town that I grew up in Indiana, when I graduated from high school, had over 15,000 manufacturing jobs. And though that town was small, the 15,000 manufacturing jobs in that town supported 4 contiguous counties. Since Ronald Reagan was elected president, those 15,000 manufacturing jobs in Fayette County, Indiana, have all moved to Mexico or China, mostly to Mexico. And there are no manufacturing jobs in Fayette County today. The unemployment rate in Fayette County is still 17.5%. The population of Connersville has dropped by 50%. 50% of the homes in Connersville, Indiana are on the market, and there is one buyer for every 20 houses. The county is in a profound depression. This is true of other counties in eastern Indiana and western Ohio, and certainly true of numerous counties in Michigan. You know, brought to us by a political class of people funded by billionaires who have used Christian churches as a mechanism for selling this ideology to Americans, strangely, you know, at their own tremendous disadvantage. It's really surprising that the people who are losing the most keep voting in these guys who are stealing from them. It's incredible to me. And it's shameful. You know, I think the dishonesty and the deceit that is present in the political system is mind-boggling. And I think the only way we're going to change it is by becoming informed ourselves. By, first of all, stop living in denial. Secondly, become informed. And third, you know, if you don't want to get involved, at least go out and vote. And even though the voting is probably going to be between dumb and dumber in the short term, the only way that this circumstance is going to change and the people of the United States are going to be able to reclaim the value of their own labor is by getting active, not by sitting back. You know, we see that as long as we lay back, you know, the business leaders and the politicians in this country are going to be happy for everything to continue business as usual. And this is really a big misfortune for us. You know, all of the trade deals so far, you know, which were sold to us as, you know, benefiting other countries, have not benefited other countries at all. They have benefited the wealthy in other countries tremendously. If you look at Mexico, before the North American trade deal, and in Mexico now, what you will see is a much more violent, much more economically unequal, you know, much more, you know, oligarchical-based political system than was ever in existence in Mexico before the trade deals. You'll also see, you know, an army, a system in Mexico of governance in place that is using the military, you know, to control dissent violently and to also protect the logistical systems which deliver illegal drugs to the United States. So in China, the average worker is still paid $100 a month. The workers live in company-owned facilities, are fed company-owned food, are basically living in a company store, which at the end of the day, they, you know, when they decide to leave, they still owe money to. While, you know, billionaires are spending $50 million on houses in in apartments in New York and houses in California. You know, in India, the situation is almost exactly the same. You know, there are 6 families in India that control 90% of the productive resources, and they have become enormously wealthy as the poor people in India have, population of poor people in India has exploded. You know, it's time for us to take some responsibility for ourselves. It is time for us, rather than, resisting old political systems, to recognize that those systems are dying, and it's time for us to begin to, first of all, engage in our own health in new ways by not taking drugs and depending on doctors, but rather by changing our diets and exercising better. It's time for us to explore ways in which we can, become well. And it's time for us to begin to make connection with our own creative energy to the degree that we will discover we have resources available that can change the quality of our own lives immediately at the level of income that we are existing in. And recognizing that we have resources available immediately that are not limited in any way by our income, we will begin to discover simple, effective, real ways to change the way we live, make ourselves and our lifestyle healthy, and create around us community which can support health and well-being, not just now, but moving into a very turbulent and uncertain future. It's not, this trade deal is a complete manipulation, and it has nothing to do with freedom or justice or democracy. It is a circumstance that exists purely to serve the interests of a very few people, whom I might add, basically believe that the middle class is a historical anomaly. The guy who founded Netscape, the first internet browser, is the source of that quote. He said in public, the middle class is a historical anomaly. That sentiment was echoed by Phil Knight, who is the head of Nike. The notion among the 1% that the rest of us are expendable is a very prominent notion reflected in this trade deal, which we are being sold the same way we were sold Obama as the person who would provide us hope and lead us into change. And we know that, basically, this trade deal is his coup de grace on the American middle class.
How would voting change what's happening right now? What do we do? I mean, you were saying vote.
Well,
what we can do right now with this. So that's my.
I think what I do is I sign petitions on the internet. I send emails to my governmental representatives. It is shocking to me in the state of Oregon, which is a pretty conscious, pretty concerned environmentally and politically state. It's shocking to me that Ron Wyden, who sells himself as a progressive, is one of the facilitators of this Trans-Pacific trade deal. And clearly, we know that the reason for that is because he is deeply in the pocket of Phil Knight and the people at Intel. For two, and probably a bunch of other very rich people. And he's selling out the interests of the citizens of Oregon for the sake of a very, very, very few people here who will benefit from that deal. We will not.
So in lieu of having someone in a real position of power to vote for, which I don't think has been our choice, we can vote with the petitions. We can vote with the way we change our lives.
But even we can vote against Ron Wyden. We can vote against Hillary Clinton. You know, we have the opportunity in the primaries to vote for, you know, Bernie Sanders. Really, it's hard to imagine anybody worse than George Bush Jr. You know, but hey, bring us another one of those, and we'll be screwed for sure.
And then we have, you know,
and then we'll have to deal with it. We'll
change.
have to grow up.
There are some evolutionary scientists who work with the theories of evolution that say not only our species, all species don't adapt and modify behaviors until they're face to face.
Until they're forced to.
Yeah, face to face with their demise. If it's affecting 150 million people in Asia, but not affecting me, I'm not going to change. It's not until it's on my doorstep that I change.
Well, and unfortunately, this is the circumstance that we find ourselves in with our leadership today. As long as nobody is identifying people as dying from climate change, politicians will do nothing.
Right. And actually not until their children are dying from climate change.
I mean, you know, we could go on and on. The stupidity is mind-boggling. You know, what we do here, what we do at the Movement Center as as individuals and as a community, is we are working deeply within ourselves to wake up and with consciously cultivated loving kindness and compassion, create a community which, you know, is aware of and responding to the circumstances that we face, not from anger, but from genuine caring and love. You know, I mean, of course I'm inviting you to participate with us if you want, but the most important message for me is that each of us begin to make the effort within ourselves to wake up and from a place of loving kindness and compassion begin to look at our lives and the world we live in and strive to create, you know, within ourselves and around us a better way and a better place to live. If we don't, frankly, by the time your grandchildren are grown, they're going to be dying. If that's fine with you, it suits me. But if it's not, then it's time to get to work. Thanks for being with us. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Cindy and Sarah. This is news to you, straight from the center of my heart. Namaste.